and welcome to Good Nightmare, a podcast where we talk about the things that keep you up at night and other fun stuff. I'm not too sure how to classify this episode, as it's not quite a fairy tale, it's not a crime, it's not an oddity, but it is a piece of history, and it has been covered by Disney, so let's consider it fairy tale-ish in this case. If you've headed over from Mirths and Monsters podcast, hello and welcome. I'm glad you could join me for a different perspective on Hercules' story. Most of us know the story of good old Herc to be one of heroism, fighting lions and boars and hydras, oh my, but his story isn't all power and glory. It's actually quite tragic and violent. Some of you probably already know all this if you're like me and you love a good myth, legend, or tales of any kind. But for those of you who don't, buckle up. Now, though Hercules does have a couple of different names, we're going to refer to him as Hercules for today's episode. This is the Greek version of the name. Hercules is a hero in Greek mythology, born to Zeus and Alcmene. He was a divine hero, a champion, and a gatekeeper of Olympus, a representation of strength, masculinity, and athleticism. He's also known to have been a playful figure, witty and joking and often playing with children. He's said to have made the world safer for mankind. He was always fighting the good fight, and when fighting didn't work, he'd use his witty banter to get out of tricky situations. You'll often find him equipped with a club and a lion's skin for clothing, and honestly, if we're looking at older representations, not much else. For a bit of a reference point, in the Disney version of Hercules, he's portrayed as the son of Hera and Zeus. However, in mythology, as mentioned, he was the son of Alcmene and Zeus, and was a victim of Hera's wrath. Without being too blunt, Alcmene was a mortal woman who was tricked by Zeus, who appeared to her as her husband, pretending to be home early from the war. Zeus is well known for his affairs, though they go by a very different name, if you gather my meaning, and for his illegitimate children. In fact, I think he would deserve an episode all of his own if I didn't dislike him so much. Hera would often try to take revenge on Zeus for his affairs and playing around by interfering in the lives of his children. When Hercules was only 8 months old, Hera sent 2 giant snakes into the nursery that he shared with his brother, expecting the children to come to harm. While his brother cried, naturally, Hercules picked up the 2 snakes and strangled them with his bare hands. He was found by his parents in his cot playing with the snakes as though they were just toys. Hercules grew up tending cattle in his younger years before moving on to Thebes, where he married his first wife, Megara, or Megara. I've always pronounced it the first way, and that's what I'm sticking with today. They had a few children together, either 3 or 8. It's contested. But their relationship was not to last. Hercules was called away on an adventure of sorts, leaving Thebes defenseless. Upon his return home, he was praying to the gods when Hera struck him down with a curse of madness. He was overcome by psychosis in which he believed that Megara was in fact Hera, and that his children were not his own but that of an enemy. He brutally slaughtered his family before coming out of his psychosis and realizing what he'd done. To pay for the crime of killing his own family, Hercules took on 10 labours, set out by his arch-nemesis, Eurystheus. If he was to complete these 10 labours successfully, he would be absolved of his sins and granted immortality. The 10 labours became 12 when Hercules accepted payment and help for the slaying of the infamous Hydra and the cleansing of the Augean stables. Because he'd accepted help and payment, they didn't count. The tasks were therefore increased to 12 overall, and the tasks included slaying the Nemean lion, slaying the Hydra, capturing the golden hind of Artemis, capturing a boar, cleaning the stables, as mentioned, slaying the Stymphalian birds, capturing the Cretan bull, stealing the mares of Diomedes, obtaining the girdle of the queen of the Amazons, Hippolyta, obtaining the cattle of Geryon, stealing the apples of the nymphs, and capturing and returning Cerberus. There were many other adventures that Hercules went on other than these labours, but he did complete them all. And it was because of the success of these labours that Hercules earned the story of his constellation. It was after completing the 12 tasks, when Hercules was kneeling in prayer to Zeus, that his image was captured in the sky. Like most Greek mythologies, this story doesn't have a happy ending. It barely had a happy beginning, and I think we can all agree that the middle wasn't exactly that fun either. Hercules went on to marry Deianira and took her travelling. The centaur Nessus, who is featured in the Disney film if you need a reference, offers to help Deianira cross the river while Hercules swims across. However, Nessus, being mischievous, to put it one way, attempts to steal Deianira while Hercules is still swimming in the water. Hercules becomes enraged and shoots Nessus with a poison arrow soaked in Hydra blood and kills him. But before Nessus dies, he hands Deianira a blood-soaked tunic that he claimed would excite the love of her husband. Years later, Deianira hears rumours that Hercules has taken an interest in another woman and that she now has someone to contest against for his love. She employs the tunic from Nessus and gives it to Hercules. As you'll recall from about 5 seconds ago, the shirt was with Nessus when he died and therefore was tainted with poison. When Hercules put the shirt on, his skin started tearing and melting, exposing his bones. While he was basically falling apart or disintegrating, he ripped up trees from the ground and built himself a funeral pyre, where he stood and had his friend light the wood. He was burned to death, and his mortal side died. But because he'd been granted immortality, when his mortal side died, his immortal self rose to Olympus. A fun fact to end a reasonably disturbing episode: between the many lovers, male and female, of Herc throughout his life, he's said to have at least 50 to 100 children, like father, like son. If you enjoyed this tale, be sure to head over to Mirths and Monsters with CK to hear more. You can hear a bit more about the man, the myth, the legend, the god, the hero, from a different perspective and with a bit of an inside scoop. If you're interested in further reading, my favourite tale of Hercules is in Medea and Other Plays by Euripides, which features the slaying of Megara and her sons in a bit more detail than what I gave. Medea is also a fantastic play. Also, be sure to check out the Disney version of Hercules if you're ready to fall in love with gospel music, great animation, and some of my favourite Disney characters. I used to watch this movie 3 to 5 times a day, every day. Needless to say, my VHS tape was incredibly warped. As always, thank you so much for listening. I hope that if you're not subscribed already, that you will hit that subscribe button so you can hear future episodes. If you enjoyed the episode and you would like to leave a 5-star rating and a review, that would be incredibly appreciated. It helps to get my name out there and allow others to find my podcast so they can enjoy some spooky tales as well. You can find me on social media on Facebook at Good Nightmare Pod, on Twitter and Instagram at goodnightmare_s, and you can always email me at goodnightmare_s@outlook.com if you have any stories or episode suggestions or just want to chat. Until next time, sweet dreams.
Hello, and welcome to a promo for Blood on the Rocks, a podcast on all things creepy, morbid, or otherwise dark. I'm your host, Akshay Taylor. Join me and various guest hosts as we cover a whole load of subjects. We'll show you the world of serial killers, accidents, hauntings, black metal, and more. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and all those other fancy podcast platforms. Alcohol and profanity content may vary.